I just spent my first year as a free man after being wrongfully convicted and incarcerated for 23 years. AMA. I'm Ricky Kidd. In 1997, I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for double homicide, a crime I didn't commit. I couldn't afford a lawyer, and the public defender I was assigned didn't have time or the resources to prove my innocence. I spent 23 years behind bars trying to prove the things my public defender should have found in the first place. In August of 2019, a judge ruled that I was innocent and released me. After I got out, I started I Am Resilience, an organization that raises awareness about those who have been wrongly convicted. Last month, I got married and, in December, we're expecting a baby daughter. And I'm Sean O'Brien, a law professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. With the help of UMKC clinical students and my CO counsel, Cindy Dodge, I represented Ricky for more than a decade and eventually got him released last year. I've spent decades working to overturn wrongful convictions, especially for inmates on death row. Before that, I was the chief public defender in Kansas City, Missouri, from 1985 through 1989. Have you been compensated by the state for wrongful imprisonment? Sean, Ricky has not been compensated. He has a team of lawyers working on that. Barry Scheck has taken his case, so stay tuned. What is a realistic expectation of what compensation is possible for Ricky? Sean, what is realistic to expect for compensation? That's hard to answer. For most of my clients, the answer is $0 because of the doctrine of governmental immunity. Clients either get nothing, or they get millions. Most get nothing. Does having even a wrongful conviction affect your chances of getting a career? Sean, yes, a wrongful conviction makes it very difficult to get a job. Sometimes it's the skepticism about their innocence, but it's always the fact that there is a decades-long gap in their resume. What do you think is the biggest misconception about someone returning to the world after such large time away? Ricky, I'm not sure what the biggest misconception is, but I can tell you what the biggest hurdle is: returning to the world after such a long time away. Sean, boy, there are so many hurdles. Everybody wants to pick up right where they left off, and so many years have passed that is virtually impossible to do. And so I have clients who look back and all they can see is what they lost. And I have clients who look forward and marvel at the everyday life around them, the beautiful things in their future. And I don't know how to help someone be someone who looks forward. That's the hardest part. It's been a beautiful thing to watch Ricky hit the ground running, but I have other clients who struggle every day. There's also a difference in ex-inmates based on their experience inside prison, and the people who have the hardest time adjusting are those who were on death row. I have one who came within minutes of execution and was exposed to the danger of execution constantly in his last 18 months in prison before we were able to free him, and he is literally disabled by his post-trauma stress disorder. And so that's hard. Ricky has taken Joe Amrine out to get groceries. I pay for his cell phone so he can at least have that BC. He lives on the back porch of his sister's house, and if it weren't for the kindness of strangers he'd have a hard time even surviving. Sean, I'm assuming you hear a lot of incarcerated people tell you they're innocent and to get them out. What inspired you about Ricky's story? Sean, Ricky's case was brought to me by an investigator I know and trust, Dan Grothaus, and when I looked into his case I realized that every single public defender to touch his case screwed up something fundamental and important. In the 1980s, I was in charge of the office that later defended Ricky, and it made me sad to see how far down the standard of performance had sunk, so I felt a responsibility to Ricky. Something needed to be done, and nobody else was stepping up to the plate. Any plans for Christmas for you two? Ricky, yep. Quarantine. I can't believe I went from canteen in prison to quarantine. What technological of societal development was the biggest surprise to you after getting out? I'm guessing it was the remote-controlled vibrator. Ricky, not for me. But you can add AirPods. Do you think your time in prison has changed your personality? Do you feel like a totally different person now? Ricky, yes, yes, and yes. Prison did change my personality. I took life for granted in my youth. Being wrongfully convicted caused me to sober up real quickly. Today I appreciate not just the big things in life but the little things as well, and always encourage others to do as well without having to lose their freedom. Did you tell the other inmates you were innocent? Did they believe you? When I was a kid I lost recess for writing on someone's desk, and I didn't do it. I still think about that 25 years later. So I can't even begin to imagine your frustration. I'm glad to hear you're free. Ricky, another perfect AMA question. I always challenge people to imagine being accused of doing something they actually didn't do, no matter how small it is. You get it. And I certainly did tell everybody I was innocent, anybody with ears who would listen. A vast majority did not believe me, but the man on this session with me, Professor Sean O'Brien, did. The Honorable Judge Darren Adkins did as well, which has landed me on this stage with you. What was the first thing you did after the time? What turned out to be very difficult after 2 decades in jail? Ricky, one of the first things I did was take a bath. In prison, there's only showers. What turned out very difficult for me after 2 decades in prison was relationships. I was used to being away from my family and I was happy to be back around my family. But I wasn't as responsive as they would have hoped or as I would have thought. Sometimes it just felt like I was still in jail when we were apart. I still struggle with this today. Congratulations on your release, and I'm sorry you had to go through that unimaginable experience. Hopefully you're okay with a personal question. Based on the timeline, it sounds like you got together with your now wife immediately after getting released, so how did you two meet? Or had the relationship already started to form while you were incarcerated? Congratulations again on the freedom, and I wish you and your new family all the happiness in the world. Ricky, this is a perfect AMA question, ask me anything. I actually met my wife in January of this year and the magic was there but initially ignored. We were working together for a period of time until the magic could no longer be ignored. After that, the rest was history. We got in a NASCAR and raced around the track. What an absolute nightmare. Did you learn any new skills, good or bad, whilst you were inside? Ricky, a nightmare indeed. As for the new skills that I learned, patience would be at the top of that list. But I also learned basic computer skills. I also learned office skills in the job that I was placed in. I became a certified dog trainer. Aside from any job assignment, I also read over 1,000 books over the course of those 23 years that have helped me adjust better than some of my other exoneree friends. Do you hold any hatred/resentment toward the public defender that was unable to help you? Or have you put all that behind you? Ricky, good question. At first, I did, many years ago I did, then I didn't, and now I do again. It's complicated. Did you ever give up on life when you realized that you maybe was gonna die in prison, or did you always kept hope even after a decade and more behind bars? Ricky, a mix of both. Out front and publicly, I kept a strong face. But at times, throughout the 23 years, I certainly was ready to give up and call it quits. I honestly believe in the fact that because my legal team did not give up on me, it made me ultimately not give up on myself. What is the biggest misconception about prison? Sean, that it rehabilitates. Ricky, that's easy. The biggest misconception is that most of society believes that everybody is guilty, when that simply is not the case by far. Another misconception is that everybody is ruthless and violent, and that is also not the case. Hello Ricky. First thing, congratulations on getting out and accomplishing all that you have thus far. I have a son who has a birthday in December, so your daughter is in great company. Grinning face with smiling eyes. One question I have is about your return to society. What was the most surprising to you in terms of how much the world has changed since you went in? I can't imagine the almost culture shock of it all. Is there anything you miss about being inside? Has your faith in the justice system changed since getting out, and in what way? I have been wrongly accused for something before, and I feel like if I didn't have a million witnesses to help back me up, then I could have been inside just like you. The cops just heard 6-foot-tall black male and scooped the first one they saw. Thank you for your time talking to us. Ricky, hands down, the technology. It took a minute to wrap my head around. The fact that a cell phone was basically a computer was mind-boggling. The fact that nobody was looking at each other but instead looking at their phones when I went out was surprising. Haha. Took me a minute to catch up, but I'm just starting to get the hang of it. Anything I miss? Absolutely not. If someone finds themselves facing court with a public defender, do you think there's anything they can do to assist in their own defense? Sean, in Ricky's case, he made a good record by writing letters to his lawyer asking her to investigate his alibi and do other things for his defense. These letters were very important later,